We did it. I did it.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We're live. Hi, Rick.
Hey, happy holidays.
Happy
Happy,
holidays.
yes,
Right, right,
getting close to the new year, which is
right,
often exciting and can be many things for many different people, obviously.
right, right. We
Um,
didn't quite say Happy New Year yet, but
no, we can't, but this is technically our last show of the year.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's our last. It's so good to be back here, just the two of us. I missed you.
Oh, you missed me. And you look fabulous today. Like, wow.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
just in keeping with the New Year, In
Mm.
Italy, we have this tradition on New Year, you have to wear something red. And usually the thing that you wear red is your underwear. So there's a big, big, big business of red underwear around the New Year and the holidays where like, especially women go nuts looking for the right fancy red underwear because it's
Yeah.
supposed to bring good luck. So,
Right.
just wanted to wear something red in keeping with a little bit of tradition. And what, Eureka was saying last week that red is, was it like the root chakra?
Yeah.
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 So the color of the root chakra, I believe. So I'm just balancing my chakras too with
Oh,
color.
oh God, give me goosebumps. And power, red with power too, right? So
Exactly.
as we move into this new year, um, I'm on a because I'm sort of this quasi photographer. I have a stock photos out, and an email came through today from the company that I send my photos to, and there's a new color for next year.
Right. What is it, red?
It is.
Yes.
It absolutely is. It's
Nice.
called vivid magenta,
Nice. Nice.
and it's supposed to represent change and power and all these other things. So advertisers are you'll start to see it with advertising because that's part of what the Pantene colors go for is that designers and everybody's going to be looking for this
Right.
particular
The,
color.
the color forecast. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
used to have to look at all that stuff too when I
yeah,
used to design. The
yeah.
whole
So
color forecast.
it's very interesting that it kind of all aligns together with this with red. So,
Right.
but this isn't the show about red, is it?
Well, it is, it's like a feeling socially, right? We've gone through a lot as a society in the last few years, and this year was the most like semi-normal year
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
last since 2020, right?
yeah,
And we're stepping into a whole new year where we've had a year semi-normal, and it feels a lot like there's a lot of opportunity there to really turn the page fully, right? Even though we are in flu season, I personally have been sick for like 2 weeks now, and I get a
oh
little
yeah,
taste of
yeah,
what that was like. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who's sick, but I also like reminded myself and so many people that I ran into that were like hiding from me because I had a cough or whatever, that we always have gotten sick. That's always been a part of life,
yeah,
that's always been a part of life. And we spent a couple years really protecting ourselves from that in a way that we never did before. And it's kind of natural that we're just getting sick, right? Getting sick.
yeah, yeah.
It gave me an opportunity to sit with myself and do a lot of thinking, right?
Mm,
Which is very much in keeping with, I feel like, what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, right?
mhm.
Because it's easy to just look ahead into the future and make a big list of all the things that we want and go right there. But in my opinion, the best way, the most effective way, the most powerful way to do that is to really look back and see where you were and how far you've come, what you have
Mhm.
accomplished, what has worked, what
Yeah,
hasn't worked,
yeah, yeah,
what can be changed, what do you want to change, right? And that clarity can only come through not only deciding what it is that you want, but really looking at what had all of these things, right? What worked for me, right? Because you and I could sit here and tell you a list of things that you could do and what has worked for us, but ultimately, it's all about it's all about learning who we are and what works for ourselves,
Well,
right?
it absolutely, and that's, I sometimes kid people that come to my workshops that, because I said this is the last workshop you'll ever need,
Right.
because the workshop, I'm not going to tell you anything that you really don't know already.
Right.
And it's about a self discovery. So everything that we're going to talk about today, and I have no idea what we're actually going to talk about, which is
Wow.
which is we have an intention to the show, right? And one of my intentions of the show is to provide the space for you to take away value, right?
Right.
And but there's stuff that you're probably going to have heard before, or reset in a different way, and things like that. But what's on offer, and what's always on offer, is the possibility to hear something fresh and new.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Within the same concepts,
Within the same
right,
concept.
which
Yeah.
is so interesting because at all times, I believe we're never still. We're constantly changing, and
Oh,
as we evolve and change, we start seeing and hearing things differently,
yeah.
right? And we may hear it 10 times, but the 11th time it really resonates. The 11th time we take that one thing away that we weren't able to take away up
Yeah.
until,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean,
And yeah,
how how often have you gone into a book that you read a few years ago, and um, realized that they added extra chapters, or something that was like, where I never saw that. I was
right,
talking to a client this morning, and we both have read The Ultimate Coach, the book on being, and he said, told me that he had read it about 6 times. And I said, well, okay. And not that I was testing him, but I just said to him, I said, do you remember the part where, where Byron Katie was talking to the author, or Steve, and what she said about, I just love the story that I created of you, kind of a thing, which really resonated with me when I heard it, right? And he goes, I don't really, it's like he doesn't recall it, right? And I said,
right, right,
so it's like, yeah, I mean, we get what we get in the moment,
right,
what is important for us in the moment.
right,
And that's why, when we reflect back on what we have accomplished over the last year, there are really no should haves or
right,
could haves,
right,
right? Because in the moment of you making that decision or choice to do whatever it is that you wanted to do, you did it with the best of intentions, the best knowledge, and your understanding in that moment.
right. And I would say also when we look back, right, there's this focusing on, instead of focusing on where I need to go, which creates a gap. I'm
Yeah.
here and I want to be there and I need to figure out how to get there. That creates lack, creates like a sense of I'm not there yet. And that's very disempowering, right? The
Yeah.
reason why we're saying look back, look at where you were at, take inventory, right? Yes, it's important to look at all the things that perhaps didn't work out and look at those things with the lens of what have I learned from that? How
Absolutely.
did I pivot from that? How did I change that narrative? How did I change things once I saw what didn't work? But also, the very, very important part of this is to look back and look at what you have accomplished. What have I accomplished? Who was I a year ago, 3 months ago, 6 months ago? Where was I at? What did I want? And how far have I come? What worked? What took me this far? Right? And the question of what worked about what I did is a very crucial one
Hmm.
because what didn't work is your feedback. Try something different, right?
Yeah.
What worked is also feedback, and he's telling you that's something you can take and put it on repeat, right?
Good.
You
You
can
could.
take that
Yeah.
one
Yeah.
thing and you can repeat it and apply it to other things in your life. right? Because it has worked for you.
Yeah.
It has worked for you.
Yeah.
So, this very important piece of reflecting back and almost like even journaling and like, and I would even say, just really write it down. Don't hold it all in your head, because when you hold things in your head, they just get mixed up. You don't get a good idea of the
No.
extent of it, right? And
No.
your brain actually works really hard to hold all those thoughts, right? So you're giving it extra work. The moment that you put it down on paper, and you have it before you actually see all of it in one place. Now your brain no longer has to work so hard to remember it, but now can just look at it and has the space to let new thinking come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
More creative thinking.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it may take a little bit of time, but it's really the most effective way to get a sense of that measure, right? Create buckets of, when this didn't work, but I learned this from it. From this thing that didn't work, I actually came up with something that really worked, right? Because it's easy when we just hold it in our thoughts to write it off as like there were so many things that didn't work out, and get into the spiral of, well, I didn't really accomplish everything that I wanted to accomplish. I thought I was going to be here, but I'm not here yet.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's very, very hard to hold that all in your thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, and we have a number of people on watching live right now. So I just want to acknowledge their presence. And
Well,
Audrey, good to see
everyone.
you. Thank you very much from Minnesota. Might be a little chilly over there. And I know there's been a lot of lot of weather changes lately. Um, but yeah, no, we welcome everybody to give us your comments, ask us some questions or questions on clarity of what we're talking about or what we're sharing, and
Right,
any insights that you have also that you've learned over the past year. Um, there's a couple of things I really like about the oh, you're right, I forgot you guys are actually having a heat wave. Right. um but there's a couple of things that I look back to, and I think what you're pointing to is we have these things called expectations, and sometimes they do get in the way,
right.
right? And I remember when I was 30, I expected that I was going to be more successful,
You're
whatever
not
that
30
looks
anymore?
like. Huh?
You're not 30 anymore?
No, no, unfortunately.
You and I both.
But it's interesting, like like there was a lot in the beginning of a lot of striving and trying to do a lot of things that I thought were the right things to do, you know, um, get some education, and that didn't really work out too well, so and we don't know for sure because like every step that we've taken, I'm here today because of all those steps.
Right,
Like
right,
I have no real idea um, of that actual process. But I do know that what really worked for me this last year is trying shit out.
right, right,
Like when I had the notion of an idea that I got out of my way, my contaminated thinking, I put it to the side and tried shit out. You know, and
right,
then, and this is kind of what we did. Evolving into in. I mean, we launched the podcast this year.
right, right, right.
That wasn't that wasn't
Rebranded. We did a lot. We got a lot done,
we
actually.
did a lot done, but it
Yeah.
wasn't on any to-do list, if you remember.
I mean, there was an intention. There was
There was
always
an
the
intention.
intention
Yeah,
of having an impact,
yeah,
helping others, right? And along the way, what the steps that needed to be taken to amplify that
yeah,
impact
yeah.
became clearer and clearer as we
Clear.
did
That
learn,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
as we tried it on,
yeah.
right? And that's the other thing. I like that you're pointing to your 30s, because one piece of this is
Don't depress me now.
one important piece of this, and always in life, not just for New Year's resolutions, is to from time to time to just sit back and do this exercise of looking back at what has worked, what hasn't worked, how far have I come, what have I done, but also reassessing whether or not the goals that you had set for the year before are still in alignment with who you are. Because this process of, like assessing and pivoting and taking the feedback and learning also changes what we want and who we are and what we thought that we were going to like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And from time to time, we find ourselves not wanting exactly the same things that we wanted even 3 months ago,
No.
right? So
Well,
it's
we're
very
changing.
important. Yeah,
We're,
absolutely.
we're evolving. We're
Right,
all constantly evolving. I
right.
mean, our nature is to evolve,
To evolve, we're
right?
always changing.
We're
We're
always
always
changing.
changing. So
Yeah.
really sit back and ask yourself, is this goal still what I'm working towards?
Yeah.
Because sometimes that goal changes within us, our inner knowing knows, but we don't catch up to it. And
No.
then that's where the sabotaging kicks in. That's where the I'm not taking steps towards it, or I feel blocked, or
Yeah.
I'm not really excited about it comes in, right? Because there's this innate wisdom within us that
Yes.
knows how to send us signals and let us know that something's just not right. But until we bring it up to our own awareness and we
Mhm.
check in with ourselves, we
Mhm.
can't change the actions that we take unless we consciously look at that.
Right. And that's why I encourage people always to hold on to your goals lightly,
Right,
because in this moment they feel like they're the right goals,
right.
but next week, right, or next month or whatever, they can change,
They
like
can't
something. And that's why, being in tune with that inner guidance, intuition, wisdom, whatever you want to call it, is vitally important moving forward. And like what Audrey just said, I appreciate, she says, I learned this year that making progress towards intentions is not failure. No,
It's not.
absolutely not failure.
Yes. It's
We
part of the
might, well,
right.
it's part of the process, and we might not know how, right? We're not, we may not get the results that we were expecting, right?
Right.
We don't know all the steps. And this is why I always go back to the story of John F. Kennedy back in the 60s. And I know I'm dating myself, but it's a vital story. That when, he said that we want a man on the moon in 10 years.
Right.
By the turn of this century, or the turn of this decade, we want a man. Now, at the time he said that, nothing was in place that would support that was going to happen.
Right.
Nothing. There was no fuel. They had no rocket design. They didn't have, Cape Canaveral and the Space Kennedy Center and all those places. The computers, nothing was there. But he had an intention.
Right. You had a very clear intention.
A very clear intention, right? And pissed off a lot of people. Like, it's like engineers would be going like, "That's impossible." Like, like nobody's ever done it.
Right.
We
Right.
barely got into space. Now you want to take this big leap, right?
Right.
Um, but you know what? He gave permission for people to fail
Right. And to dream also.
and to dream, right?
Right.
And
Right.
here we go into the impossible dream, the impossible dream.
Right. Well, we're gonna get into that, right? Because that's part
Yeah,
of
that's part of it. Yeah.
right.
But
Right.
but there's so much in pointing yourself in a direction and having this unknown field in front of you
Right. Right.
that is scary as hell, but having the courage to take one step forward,
Right.
and
Right.
then the next step, and the
Right.
next step.
And that's like really really setting that ultimate goal like over there, right? And then from this place where we're setting this goal, we're envisioning all of this, getting there is a whole different process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I think this the exercise of really realigning ourselves with what has been, what we've done, checking in with ourselves and our values and seeing, if it's still in alignment, it's still what we want, is one part of it. The other part of it is I feel like oftentimes people hyper focus on the thing that they think is, like the problem in their lives. And that's
Oh,
where they focus all their
yeah.
effort into, creating or changing or shifting, right? But I want to invite people to really take an opportunity now at the end of the year where things have slowed down a lot for a lot of us, right? Let's look at this in a more holistic way, right? Because maybe finances is your biggest thing. And maybe it is the one thing that if shifted will shift a lot of different part areas of your life. But it's also always important to look at all the different areas of our lives, right?
Mhm, mhm.
But we're not just one thing. Your finances are not going to create your happiness, right? It's
No.
where your personal is, where your relationships are, is where your health is where your, mental being is, where you're at spiritually, where you're at socially, where you're at with, like doing things like that feed your soul, that your creativity, travel, like all of that creates that
Mhm.
picture of fulfillment and happiness,
Yeah.
right? Now, identifying which part is the one that's suffering the most, what we need to put a little weight into is important, but putting all the weight just into that is going to create imbalance in
A-
the rest,
Absolutely.
right?
That's the big key is that, hemostasis is about balancing,
Right,
and the universe gives us those examples all the time, on how things are always balanced, right? Like when you overeat a meal, like that's never happened to me. um, our bodies want to rebalance that out again because there's discomfort in that. It's the
right,
same with our minds. When we're
right,
focused on something that we perceive as a problem, again, things become out of balance. An
right.
overused strength becomes a weakness,
That's a weakness, absolutely.
right? Um, Frederica has an interesting question around how far should we look back? And what about if the past year, example 2022, was totally into stagnation? Now, that's an interesting concept, stagnation,
Right.
because what we're telling everybody is it's always constant flow. There's always
As a coach, I would ask, is that really true?
is that really true?
Is that
Is
really true?
Yeah, it's right. And so the reflection piece is about looking where that might not have been true, um, and challenging that piece because
Right,
it is true that everything is in constant flow.
right,
And while you might be looking at one particular area, like we were talking about earlier, yeah, maybe you didn't see any growth there, or didn't notice any growth there,
right,
and that's the other key is the noticing piece, right?
right.
Um,
I mean, the other thing that I would say is like, as always, what you tell yourself creates your reality. Meaning, if you tell yourself it's been stagnation, your brain will only find evidence to prove that it's been stagnation.
yeah,
So I want to challenge you, Frederic. I want to challenge you, and I want to ask you to just play with me and run an experiment with yourself. Ask yourself, now you have all of your evidence that this was mostly stagnation. Ask yourself, where did you not have stagnation this year? Think about one place, one
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
one activity, one event, one day, one simple thing that wasn't stagnant. And start from there. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be big.
Hmm.
It can be the smallest thing. I ran 5 minutes longer. I was able to have a better diet. Anything that has shifted forward. And I bet you that you can find one thing. And you know what happens when you set your reticular activating system to find the evidence for that? It will find another evidence. It will find another evidence. And over the days, I want to invite you to notice
Yeah,
what else comes to mind. It's just going to drop in your awareness,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So that's one thing that I would suggest. And the other thing that I would suggest is, well, let's look at all the places where this stagnation was present, right? And let's ask ourselves, what about that created the stagnation? What was preventing me from moving forward? What
Mm-hmm.
was keeping me there?
Yeah.
What wasn't feeling right about it, right? And what can I learn from that, right? We have all these answers within ourselves.
Yeah.
We always do, right? If you open yourself up to and remain curious, right? Remain curious and just remove all the judgment, remove all the guilt, remove all the feelings that you have around it and the conditioning,
Yeah.
right? And ask yourself, what was it about it? Be very, very, very honest with yourself. And what have I learned from that, right? Well, perhaps I had a goal that I was going to go, I don't know, to the gym 5 times a week, and I never moved my butt and did it. Well, at the very least, I know that 5 times a week to the gym doesn't work for me. It's
Mm-hmm.
as simple as that. What would happen if I tried 1 time a week?
Yeah. Yeah.
Would that still be true? Right? And this kind of actually brings us into the next step of once, well, it's a further step, but like to really, and we always speak to this, to really keep your action steps when you're trying to move something that's stagnant into action. Keep those action steps tiny. I'm not even going to say small, super, super, super tiny, and start from there, because tiny plus tiny plus tiny plus tiny becomes small, and small plus small, eventually becomes a big step.
Well, it becomes momentum, right?
Exactly.
You create momentum. So just getting back to just my point on the stagnation piece is, and I like what you're talking about is, like looking at that area. I asked the question, how have I contributed to that stagnation?
Right,
Like, because I'm creating the experience. So how am I contributing to that?
right,
How have I contributed? And you really start to look at yourself going, you know, hmm, I didn't, I, I didn't focus anywhere there.
right,
My
right,
attention was someplace else. Oh, okay. Um, so there's that kind of reflection that's
right,
also possible, right?
right. But I would also say, when you ask that, also immediately after that, ask, was there a lack of alignment? Because I don't want people to fall into beating themselves up more, right? I didn't
Oh,
take action, right?
no, no, no.
Right. The very, like, how did I contribute to this? And
Yeah,
then bringing compassion into that question for yourself. Okay, I didn't freaking do anything. Let's be honest. I didn't take action. But I'm not going to sit here and feel guilty about it now. Well, what about it didn't speak to my soul,
well,
right?
that's an important question, right? Do
Right,
you still want that?
right,
Like, is there any like, because if you really truly want something, you're going to move towards it.
right,
So, having inaction or having something not move forward,
right,
um, it really begs the question: do you still want it? Like,
right.
do you really want it? And that's a tough one
And
because
whose expectations are you
yeah,
meeting? Your
yeah,
own?
yeah,
Your old selves? Your parents? Your spouse?
yeah.
Social expectations? Are those your own? Like, when we talk about alignment, I know it's a very fancy word these days, but that's what we're talking about. Without any judgment for yourself or from the outside world, is that truly what I want? You don't even have to disclose that to anyone. Be very honest with yourself. Journal
Yeah,
about it. Do I
yeah,
really want this thing?
yeah,
Right? Because
yeah.
when
It
we
just
really,
talk
really
it out.
want something, we
Yeah,
do take the action.
yeah, absolutely. And I was in a goal setting session with a client, and he talked about, he wanted to have $100,000 business
Right,
next year, and I said, great. What will that give you? What will
right,
that provide you?
right,
And it stumped him
right,
because what he had was a number, but he had nothing attached to that number. He had no feelings attached to that number. He had no idea what that number would do for him,
right,
which was interesting. And I said, well, what what made you come up with 100,000? Why not 500,000? Why not 1 million?
right,
And then all now extra thinking came into play, and it's like, well, I thought 500,000 was being too arrogant, was being too this, too that, or
All the
whatever,
conditioning
all the
around.
conditioning. And I said, well, what's the difference between 100,000, 100,000, and 500,000, other than four extra thousand, hundred thousands?
Well, it just shows that there's a lack of what am I going to do with that? What is the purpose of this money, right? And that's why, I'm really stressing this exercise of realigning yourself with what you think that you want. And
What?
I'm using this purposely, what I think that I want.
Yeah,
Let's make that what I think that I want into this is exactly what I want,
yeah,
right? And it is only through doing this exercise of checking in with ourselves that we can establish that. Because as we're going to now shift into how do we now set these goals for 2023, in this case, what we're going to really establish first is what is our purpose? Let's check in with that. Maybe we already know, maybe we're already crystal clear, but maybe we were just hyper focused on I just need money because I need to pay my bills because I need to check, right? And that comes from lack, comes from like I don't have that, right?
yeah, yeah,
Right. What would this money help you do if you were able to pay your bills, if you were able to have more money in your bank account, you would be able to travel and have amazing experiences, give your kids those experiences, whatever it is. Like, what is the greater purpose, right? Really have that crystal clear, because everything else is comes after that, right? It's like underneath that. That's the
yeah,
umbrella,
yeah.
right? Of where we're aiming at being, right? That's the place where that's what we're gonna keep in our hearts and we're gonna dream towards, right? When we envision our future.
And one of the there's sort of like speaking backwards, talking to that point. A lot of people this time of year look towards resolutions, right? And one of the biggest ones is I want to lose weight, right? It's a big one, right? It's something that keeps coming up with me all the time, right?
I have a good suggestion. Get the flu.
Get the flu. Yeah,
I
yeah.
lost a lot of weight. I didn't need to, didn't
Yeah.
want to.
Don't get sick. We don't want you
It's
to
a
sick.
side joke.
That's not a plan. But if you ask it, so there's 10 questions. Well, it's the same question, but you ask it 10 times.
Right.
And this is part of your journaling, right? So you
Okay.
can put it at the top of your page and you go, I want to lose 30 pounds. And when I lose 30 pounds, I will be able to. And then you write down
What it's
what
going
what
to,
30 pounds minus 30 pounds will do for you.
right.
And it's so powerful. I'm getting goosebumps because I remember doing this with a client, and it got down to the like as you go, oh, I'll feel better about myself. I'll all these,
Right.
right? And then it started to get into I'll be able to play with my grandchildren better. I experienced that kind of piece, right? And then it was I'll be able to live longer so I can be at the weddings of my grandchildren and
Right.
experience more, right? So at first it's like, yeah, it's the right thing to do. I'll feel better about myself and all this other kind of stuff,
Healthier, right.
right? And it's very personal. And then after three or four times, it doesn't become personal anymore. It becomes more existential, right? It's sort of like, yeah, I will be able to be there. I'll be able to walk my, whatever it is. It's really interesting to get involved in that way.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. It just makes that connects that desire with, something deeper,
something
something
deeper,
more meaningful for us than just losing the weight,
and
right?
that's what's going to move you forward. That's what moves you forward, not the fact that yes, that you're overweight and you've tried this before. It's because you and failed, or
Right.
not achieved it. And so like all diets don't work, all this kind of stuff. That's not true. None of that's true because some people go on these diets and they actually work.
Right.
And there's one company that's kind of pointed towards it's not the process of losing weight, it's the mindset around
Right.
losing weight.
Right.
You're thinking about that. Oh, it's a struggle. That's a story.
Right.
Struggle is a story
Right.
you made up that causes, right? I found quitting smoking quite easy. I went from 3 packs a day to nothing. And it was easy. And everybody says, well, I'm having such a struggle. And I go, yeah, but that's your story.
Right.
And that's fine. Stick with it, right? Um, but but my story is it was quite easy, right? It's like I just said to myself, I said, I'm a non-smoker. I want to be a non-smoker. And what does a non-smoker do? They don't smoke.
That's simple, right?
It was that simple, right? I was being, and this is an important piece going forward, is I needed to be a non-smoker
Right.
and understand what
Embody that.
that meant. Yeah,
Right.
you know, and
And and that's like, this is such a good point that you're making, because, well, two good points, right? The
two, only
power, two good points,
two,
Rick. You
two.
scored.
Okay.
Well, the power of belief,
Yeah,
right? Because
yeah,
let's start there. If you don't believe that something is possible for you, it's not going to be possible for you.
ain't gonna happen.
Your brain is going to do anything possible to make that belief that it's not possible for you true,
Yeah,
right?
well, it
So,
already does now,
right,
right? It
right. You're
already does now.
working against yourself,
Yeah, whatever
right?
you believe is exactly whatever your intention is exactly the evidence you're getting right now.
Exactly. And even setting intentions, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about setting intentions truthfully. If we really want to look at this,
Okay.
right? It's
Okay.
just a day on the calendar that changes,
Yeah.
right? But what makes it powerful is that intention, is that belief, is that the collective conditioning and belief around believing that something is going to change with a new year coming in,
Yeah.
right? Because it's really just another day around the
Just
sun.
another day.
It's just another day, right?
Just
But
another
because
day.
we believe that it makes a difference,
Yeah.
because we collectively give it power in that sense,
Totally. A full.
it does make a
Yeah.
difference. And
Yeah.
that's why we're speaking to it,
Yeah.
right? So the power of belief is really, really crucial
Yes.
here,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And I don't remember what is the number 2 point that you made.
Well,
I'm
that
sure.
that one is the one I sit with all the time. Like I'm always constantly pointing clients towards that because I use a model called the ladder of inference, and you can look that up. But at the top of the ladder is your belief system, is
Right,
what you believe, right? The world around you is moving regardless of what you believe or how you interact, whatever. But what you believe is mirrored back to you in your experiences. And we have 3 categories of where our beliefs lie in: the beliefs about ourselves, the beliefs about other people, and the beliefs of what life is in general, right? So if you believe that life is hard and a struggle, guess what? Right? If you believe that you're not good enough, guess what? Right? So belief is the foundation of everything,
right,
right? It tells us where our thinking is going. And the next step is, of course, is the feeling part, but we are always constantly experiencing what we believe to be true
right.
in the moment,
Deep
deep
inside.
inside.
Right.
Yeah,
It's a match to our feelings, right? Because
yeah,
sometimes, and that's the thing about like setting intentions and affirmations. You just write all these things that you want, and why those don't work. Just like that.
yeah,
Without this groundwork ahead of time,
yeah,
right? Without this reflective, deep inner work ahead of
yeah,
time,
yeah,
right? Because you're telling yourself something that deep inside you don't believe to be true. When you read, and you won't know that unless you do this work of really, like, honestly looking at yourself and asking these questions, right? Why do I really want it? Do I really want this, or do I want
yeah,
it because I'm expected to, or because that's, because I'm pleasing someone, or because
yeah.
that's,
Or
social,
there's an
what we
expectation
do.
for me to do that because, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
So when you do affirmations or set intentions like that, you're kind of fooling yourself,
yeah,
right? Because you are missing this very, very crucial piece of inner work, the reflective work of realigning things with who you are and what you truly want,
What you truly want.
what you truly want,
Yeah.
and having the lens of a learner versus the critic, right? Having the lens of someone that's looking at what you have done as feedback of not only what hasn't worked, but also, oh, this didn't work, and he's pointing me to the work that needs to be done and to the question of, did it not work because I don't actually want this,
Yeah.
right? Which is crucial. You're
Yeah.
never going to create something that you deep inside don't feel aligned to,
Yeah.
that you deep inside don't believe that you can or don't believe that you want,
Yeah.
right?
And Audrey, she says, "Will you be taking us through a
Yeah.
setting attention process today so we can get organized?" So there's a couple things about that. Okay. There there it's a very simple process,
Right,
right? Because you basically turn yourself towards the direction you want to travel.
right. Once you have established
Well,
where I want, is it that
that's the
align?
direction you want to go, right?
Right,
And one of the things that we shared in our description is something that Richard Carlson does every year. And one of the things that, because feelings are attached to play actually a very crucial role in providing or getting what you really want, um, is he asks the question, and this is, I've heard this from Mel Robbins and a few other people. They call it future traveling, um, and but it's basically imagining yourself that it's now today, December 28th, 2023.
right,
Okay. Now you put that at the top of your journal page. You put that at the top of your uh, and you said, now it's 1 year from now, and you've had the most enjoyable year ever.
right. And this is the
What
fun,
happened?
right?
What
This is
happened?
the fun part where you
The
can
fun
really,
part. And
yeah,
so you start talking and listening, all the different things, the narratives of what happened. Like, and and because the world is full of possibility, it's a blank page. You put whatever you feel is possible. Like, no
but
judgment.
without going into the judgment, exactly, without going into the how. And I think that's a crucial piece to
Oh, absolutely,
underline. Do not try to figure it out as you do this visualizing exercise.
absolutely.
Do
Ab-
not try and figure out how you're going to do it. Do not go into that's the critic. That's not
yeah,
possible. What are
yeah.
you talking? That's too big. This is impossible. How are you going to do that? If you go into that, then you're not really doing the exercise
No,
properly.
no.
Let yourself dream. Let yourself dream.
Absolutely. And I'm moving, starting in March. I'm joining Michael Neal's group in doing the creating the impossible, which is basically the same thing. In 90 days, what would you like to have accomplished in 90 days? And it has to be impossible,
Right.
right? It can't be just hard work, right? Because there's something that he's pointing towards. So you start working backwards, and you start telling the story of what made this year so enjoyable, right? I went and visited my kids in another part of the world. I went on a vacation. All these different things that you're saying made it so enjoyable. And then you go back into it and you go, okay, so what made that enjoyable? What
Right.
made you visiting your kids on the other side of the world enjoyable? All right. And then you go a little bit deeper into that part of it.
The experiences and seeing new places, the connection with them, spending time together, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like when you start listing those things, you start seeing the pieces of the puzzle, right?
Absolutely.
Because it's very much creating the life that you want is very much about living in that feeling today.
Living in the
A
feeling
feeling
of
today,
today.
right? Where can
Yeah.
you feel more connection?
Yes.
Where can you see new places? Where can you enjoy, connecting with your loved ones,
Yeah.
right? Today, how can you start creating those same feelings for yourself today?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
No, but yeah, I mean that's where it all starts, right? So when you've put your story together of your most enjoyable year, now we're talking the next 12 months, right? So you are now writing this as if it has happened,
Exactly.
right? So it has happened. It's December the 28th, 2023, and you could pretend that you're talking to Fatih or myself, and we're interviewing you, and you go, Fatih, I had the most enjoyable year, and this is what happened. It's like I was I was on the Oprah show. I did a TED talk. I finally finished my book that I was writing.
Right.
Launched this business that I've been dreaming about for eons. Right, I got started. I've got a lot of work left to do, but I got it going. Right, so that's the whole story. And then you start asking a question, and I'll put this in the description again, in the chat. But um, what did you stop doing?
Right. What did you let go of? What did
Right. What did you let go of to
you
have this most enjoyable year? Well, I let go of the fact that I'm always broke. The
right?
thought
Or
that I'm,
believing that, or believing,
yeah, that there was,
believing in lack,
yeah,
right?
yeah, that I believe that. Oh, I mean, there's some deeper ones there, but I'm like, anyways, in the essence of time, look at that. What did you stop doing?
Right.
Um, I stopped procrastination. I stopped wasting time overthinking everything.
But also, remember, like, going, because this is a big one for a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? Lack, like financial abundance. If you're in a year from now, you're financially more abundant. What did you stop doing? Well, I stopped being cheap,
Yeah.
right? I stopped, like, always saving. I gave myself permission to go out to dinner. I gave myself permission to buy blueberries or
I was
whatever it is,
treating
right?
I was treating
Yeah,
myself. I was
I'm
treating
treating
myself.
myself, and I
Oh,
no longer
absolutely.
see it as a treat. It's
Yeah.
That's just what I do to take care of myself, right? So what it really staying in that feeling of what it
Stay,
feels like to
you
be
stay
there,
in the
right?
feeling, but it's not an ego goal in the sense of I need to treat myself, and therefore I'm going to buy, this $50,000 vehicle and feel better about it, right? There's something called common sense
Right.
and our inner guide that directs us into, you know, and it is again you're in touch with that feeling and understanding. So yeah, the little things, I've caught myself exactly like you were saying, like the like this week me and my wife have not had seafood for a long time, partly because my dad's allergic to it. But this Christmas, because we were having a bunch of people coming over, I looked at this tray of shrimp, right? And it's like,
You're so
you know
welcome, Audrey. God.
yeah, and I said to myself, you know what, I'm going to get this shrimp, right?
Yes, get
you,
the
you know
shrimp.
and yeah, it was something I wasn't considering as part of my budget, kind of a thing. But you know what, it just felt right. It just
But
felt
but
right.
sometimes we also like drag along some of those
Oh,
habitual behaviors,
totally.
because when you really look at it, it's like, well, I really could buy the shrimp. And oh, look, I have that thing on auto payment for 3 years now that I haven't used, right? We may be spending money in places where we don't really need to spend money. And like we're
Well,
still depriving ourselves of
not
things
only not only that,
that
I
matter to us,
so
right?
this is how things align in this world, right? This is how things align, right? I was thinking, and I let go of the thought of, that's a little extravagant, right? And so I ended up buying it. I got a check in the mail, and I wasn't expecting it, from a workshop that I did for the EMS leadership
Right.
summit this year, right? I forgot about it. and it's like, and it was more than enough that I needed to
right,
cover any of the expenses. So
right,
we don't know
right,
where anything's going to happen. Like George Bernard Shaw has a quote around when we put ourselves forward in an intention, providence aligns,
right.
and that is so powerful
But
to
also,
experience.
again, match
Yeah.
that intention to the feeling.
Oh,
Again,
absolutely.
you can
Absolutely.
have the intention, but your feeling is not a match to it.
Yeah.
The feeling is what creates it.
Yeah.
You can't really create with your mind, you're creating with your energy.
That's
The
where creation.
feelings are energy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. You can't think your way into it. And this is one of the things with the key message in creating the impossible is there's there's a there's almost a feeling of an intervention from an outside energy force.
Right, right,
Like it can't be done just by your hard work,
right.
right? There's something impossible about it. Um, but it's
which which
also,
which is also like surrendering to something greater than
well,
you're
yeah,
doing,
yeah,
right?
there's something like that. And there's allowance in it, right? So allowing yourself to experience failure, allow yourself um, to answer the question, what would you do moving forward if you absolutely knew there was no such thing as failure?
Right. I would even suggest let's just eliminate that word because it has such a negative connotation,
Yeah.
right? What if you just allowed yourself to receive the feedback, to be in the process?
Well, it's all
Creating
feedback. Yeah.
anything is a
Yeah.
process.
No matter what.
Anything is a process, no
Yeah.
matter what. So
What
let's
what would you be
remove this word,
doing tomorrow or today or 1 hour from now if you weren't worried about what the outcome would be?
right? And if you were just completely open to feedback,
Yeah. Yeah.
completely open to feedback,
Yeah.
understanding the feedback is what creates
Yeah.
what you're trying to create,
Yeah.
right? And then I would say, that now we have created this big umbrella where we want to go, being in the feeling of it, being crystal clear on, being aligned to that, looking also at all the different areas of our lives. Don't just look at the one where you have
Oh
lack,
no, yeah, your story is about
right?
everything, right?
And also, when
Yeah.
you look at the different areas of your life, take inventory of what is going really well about those areas. If it's going really well, what about those things? What makes it go really well? What
Right.
is it that you're doing there that's making it go
Well,
really well? And
and
how
that
can you
and
apply
that
it?
that's the third question. That's the interesting question is, like, again, your future based, right? Your 12 months from now is actually writing down what lessons did you learn last year?
Right, right,
Not reflecting on the year that, but you're already 12 months into it, right? You're
right,
already so now reflect back on, and that's an interesting enlighten like insight, because now you're starting to, I learned that I can let go of control. Oh,
right,
really? Right?
right.
And really the bottom line after this is really about, what do you have to be now?
Who do you have to be? Who is the
Yeah.
person that's going to
Yeah.
get there? What, like you said before, what do you need to stop doing,
Yeah.
right? What are some actions that you can take? But then, if we want to really boil it down to goal setting, right? Then, I mean, you can find a ton of information on goal setting, right? I think the greater message here and what we're saying to you is like where you're starting
Yeah.
from within, right? In
Yeah.
setting these
Yeah.
intentions, right? But to just go into that briefly, you take your your big goal and you start walking it back. Break down the year into quarters,
Yeah.
right? What is something that I can do in this one quarter? What is the one thing that if I do that one thing is going to move me closer to my ultimate goal,
And
right? And
that's
then,
where your focus has to be.
right,
It's
then
always,
that's all you need to worry about, right?
it's
You
like
already, you
setting,
have already
yeah, you set
established
your
where you're
GPS.
going, right?
Yeah, the GPS, your internal GPS is set by your intention.
Right, right,
And like every GPS, it tells you the route. right? It
Exactly.
calculates a route. The only
Exactly.
problem with our GPS, from my experience and what I've learned over the years, is that it will give you the first step, and then
Right.
when you get there, the next step is always revealed. Like I have one thing about, and we talk about slowing down to the speed of life, is that if I get too far ahead on what I think are all the steps, and it's okay to have that, I'm just being more loose to them, that
Right.
of the possibility that that might not be step 4,
Right. Right.
right?
I mean, really, truthfully, all you need to worry about, even when you break it down to the quarter, is like now you're going to break it down to the month.
Yeah,
Now you're going to break it down to the week. And
yeah,
now you're going to break it down to what do I need to do every day, right? What is one step I can take today? And
yeah,
that's all you need to worry about, because as you take that one step every day, that GPS may redirect the way there,
yeah,
right? And it's your ability to adjust to that change, to go along with that redirection that's going to take you there,
yeah,
right? Because if I have a set way on the GPS and the GPS is redirecting me, but I still want to go down that road, there might be a massive accident along the way that I don't know about, and now I'm hitting it,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So the ability to really adjust and move through with the redirection is what's going to get you there fastest.
yeah.
And also your willingness to trust that, to
That's the key.
surrender to it.
Be willing to experiment, be willing to try shit out. You could always go back to your old ways of thinking. You could that's you could, right? But I guarantee you that no matter how big or how small that step is, it will be life changing for you. You
Absolutely.
you have right now in front of you the opportunity to have the most enjoyable experiences in 2023,
Right.
no matter what,
No
no
matter what.
matter what.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And once you have established all of this, I feel like the actual process of setting up those goals and what the action steps are, that's a more mindless process,
it
right?
really does.
You
Yeah,
just sit down and you figure out the steps. And really, the trick is like in all things in life, in all things that we speak to as coaches, break it down to the smallest, most doable, easiest step possible when you're starting,
yeah,
right? You're not stuck in that. You're not stuck in that, but that's how you get started and you create momentum.
yeah,
So yeah, maybe the dream vision that you had feels really, really, really big. We're just gonna leave it there, right? And we're gonna break it down to the smallest steps. And we're gonna start stepping into the identity and the feeling of all the things that we want.
absolutely.
What are some things that I can do today to feel more
Yeah,
connected?
yeah,
I'm gonna call a good friend. I'm gonna go out and meet with someone that matters to me. I'm going to do something that's going to make someone that I love happy. Create that feeling for yourself every day,
yeah,
one action after the other. And that is what's going to rewire your brain and allow you to step into that
yeah,
person that's going to live that vision.
yeah, yeah. And you will be evolving into somebody that's new and fresh,
New and fresh.
right? New and
Yeah.
fresh, shedding the old. You know,
Shedding the old.
whatever metaphor you want to talk about, right? It's the yeah, no, it's a magic.
I wonder if there were any questions that we missed. There was a lot going on in the chat. Um, Sounds like a lot of people had good takeaways from it.
Yeah, play, enjoy. Yeah, that's
Definitely stop focusing on what doesn't move. I did focus on solution. I felt all the movement, and I felt so much alive.
yeah,
Frederick,
that's the key, right? It's the hot and cold.
and I
It's
love this too. Very helpful. Thank you for staying in the feelings and in the play and joy of it. Yes, experiment, play with it. Absolutely.
why would you do anything that you don't enjoy? Come on.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to be here talking to you if I didn't enjoy it. We didn't have fun with it, right?
I know
Like,
it's all
oh
play
my
and
God,
play.
how do we grow this?
Oh,
And how do you do a podcast? And how do you, like get more subscribe? Well, but we're gonna say, if you enjoyed this conversation, if you found value in it, listen to our podcast, subscribe to it.
yeah,
It helps support us and amplify our message. Leave us an honest review. Leave
yeah,
us an honest review. Give us feedback. Send us a personal message. We
yeah.
enjoy that. If something didn't help, we receive the feedback really well because we do walk our talk, right?
Hmm.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you enjoy more seeing us, seeing our matching shirts. And like, tell your friends, share this episode, share this podcast. Go through the episodes. I had someone that I've been coaching for a while, telling me that she finally went into our podcast because that's an easier way for her to listen to it instead of YouTube. And she wanted to start at the very beginning, so she went to the very first episode, and
Wow.
wow, it was awesome. I was like, you know what? You are right. Our first episodes were maybe not as focused as we are now, but they were really awesome. They were very fresh and new. So it
And
was good feedback for me to receive. Right?
absolutely. And this is a key point, and I know we're up to top of our hour, is that this isn't about me and you. It's about you out there,
Right. Right.
right? You
Uh,
will you
helping.
will find you in these podcasts,
Right.
right? The experiences that you're getting, you will find you in what you're hearing.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we want to leave you with this willingness for you to keep exploring who you are.
Right.
And if we can help, if we can be a catalyst in that, reach out to us. We love to hear from you. And we are very responsive in any questions. There's emails for both of us. Connect with us in other social media sites and things like that. um, but
And like, we're doing it live. We're doing it live
yeah,
because we want to give you an opportunity to come and ask these questions, right? So come and ask the questions. Come and ask the questions. Like, a couple of people did today. It really even helps, like, gear the conversation towards what you need to hear,
yeah,
right? Because this is our best guess. This is what we think that you need to hear, what we know that is helpful, right?
yeah.
But come and ask the questions and, like, participate in this with us. I'm going to put our links here. Just one last thing I'm doing. If you want to reach out to either Rick or myself, there are links. I posted the links to just
Hmm.
listen to the podcast. Everything is there, everything is in the captions. You know where to find us. Give us feedback, show up, just say hi, even if you just say hi. We love to feel that somebody's watching us, that somebody's here with us having this experience.
We had a good audience today, and I appreciate Audrey and everybody else that um, you know um, responded. Frederic, Frederic,
Frederick, Frederick,
Frederic.
I think.
Anyway, I
Blue
I
advantage.
want to wish you, Fatih, a very happy New Year,
Thank you. You too, Rick. It's
and
been it's been, reflecting back, it's been an absolute honor to
oh
do this with you in the last, 1+ year.
yeah,
And I've learned so much from you. We've grown together so much. It's
absolutely,
been a very enriching experience. And it makes me better every time that we have a conversation, right? It helps me grow and see the world from a different perspective, which is the very reason why we decided to just start live streaming all of this,
yeah,
because it was so transformational for both of us.
yeah,
So I want
yeah.
to thank you. I want to thank you
Oh,
for being in my life and for doing this with me.
oh, come on, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. It's been a blessing, absolutely a blessing. And I know we often say this before, we would never have predicted this would have happened. We started talking to each other a couple of years ago, and we had this funny notion about, why don't we record what we're talking about? Maybe somebody else wants to hear this too.
Right.
And it's like, we've never done this before. Yeah, we've had our own little public speaking and things like that, but this is so different. And you know what? This journey, I don't think I've ever been afraid to do it with you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's never
Me
been this.
too, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so
So
much, comfort. And I know I've abandoned you and stranded you a couple of times.
you disappeared on the live stream.
But look what you learned. I mean, not
Yeah.
that there was any plan, but
Yeah.
like, you learned that hey, I could do this.
I
I
learned to show up, right? And
yeah,
I asked the
yeah,
audience for help, and the audience participated, right?
yeah,
The audience started interacting with me, right? And I learned about something about myself,
yeah,
right? Whereas the first time I went live was my very first live. Not many people know this. I had never even gone on live on Facebook or Instagram.
yeah.
My very first live, and look at where we are at now, right? And in this what we're doing now is really important too, to really look back and see how
Yeah.
far we've come. Because we could sit here and be like, well, we're not a huge podcast yet. We need to do this, and this, right? And that would be very disempowering. But I choose to look at how far we've come. I choose to look at how enriching this has been in my life, and how much I love it, how much I love what we're creating together, and
Oh,
how easy it is for you and I to do this, because there's an alignment there,
oh
right?
well, yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
effortless. Yeah.
Effortless. It's effortless. And this is what I want to, I'm pr- I'm
Frederick,
apologies, but
Frederick.
yeah, like, you are dreaming about a podcast actually on aromatherapy practices. You know what? The fact that you can dream it, you can turn it into a reality. Just take the first step, move forward in faith. We're here to help you.
Right,
Um, if you got any questions, feel free to contact us. I love to hear success stories. So
right,
I want to read that, what happened. Like, like,
right. Come back and let us know. And you know what? We're gonna let you into a little. I'm gonna let you into my little secret of how I faced that first live. I was like, no one's gonna be there anyway. It's just gonna be the two of us, right? And that actually made it really simple, right? And that's what we're talking about. Just do the thing. Make yourself as comfortable as possible when you take these steps, right? Make it super easy, because
yeah.
it's about the momentum. It's about having those small successes stacked up. So if it's about you recording the podcast and just doing it for yourself and listening to it and learning from that, that's where you start.
Well,
Anyway,
yeah, and actually, like, even prior to that, there's a few more other steps that will be discovered prior to that, right? So it's like, you know what? Just go for it. I know that doesn't seem very empowering or whatever, coach
it
like.
is empowering. Take the lead, take the step. It's
Yeah,
really a step,
yeah.
right?
What does Nike say? What is the Nike?
Just do it.
Just do it.
Just effing do it.
Create some create some shit out there.
Yeah,
There's not enough of it. There's not enough of it,
yeah,
right? We were
yeah.
born to create. So let's start creating. All right?
All
Done.
right, everyone. We're gonna see you on the other side of this year. We're
Yeah.
gonna have a guest next week, another guest after that. So you're not gonna see just the two of us for a few weeks, but nonetheless, we're gonna be here next week.
We're gonna, yeah. And we've got
Yeah,
some really powerful guests about you
really
know,
powerful lineup. Yeah.
yeah,
So
really powerful.
be prepared. Stay
And
tuned.
that was the other thing. I want to acknowledge before we leave all the powerful people that we've had on our show this last
Right.
year.
Right.
Like, it's, we had a fresh start. We had a new concept, a new branding, and
Not last year, last 3 months.
oh, I know. Well, I mean, but
Last
yeah,
three
the last
months.
3 months,
Right.
right? I know it happened so fast, but it's funny. Like, when you reflect on it, it seems like it's been that way forever, right?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
but you're absolutely correct. And a lot of these, friends and acquaintances have reached out and supported us that way. Um, so I want to acknowledge, their presence and helping us make this show special too.
And all of you, all of
And
you.
y'all of
uh,
you.
that show up to our lives to support us that way, that
Yeah.
you listen to our podcast and interact in the chat and ask questions. Thank you. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for amplifying the message. Thank you for doing the work. Thank you for caring enough about yourselves to be here,
Yeah.
right? It's an act of love towards
Yeah.
yourself.
Towards
So,
yourself.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All
So
right.
all the very best. All the very best. Many blessings.
I wish I had something like Happy New Year, but it's not the New Year yet. We're going to have to record it.
Us popping some.
I got my tea, everyone.
Yeah. All
See you
right.
on the other side of the year
Cheers.
2023.
Bye bye.
Ciao, everyone. Until next time.